Clare FM's In the Garden with Clonroad Garden Centre, Clonroad Business Park, in the heart of Ennis. Whether you're a seasoned gardener or just starting out, our friendly staff are here to help your garden grow. Open 6 days a week, Monday to Saturday.
And it is a very good morning to Judy Beck from the Clonroad Garden Centre. Judy, how are things?
Good morning, Alan. I'm good. I hope you're well.
Very well, and it's a very apt topic that you've chosen, because we heard earlier on in our chat about Blue Monday from Grania Travers, the nutritionist, that putting a variety of colours of fruit in your basket, shopping basket, can help in terms of enhancing your mood. And you're going to help even further because you've tips and advice on growing fruit.
Yeah, and there's lots of different types of fruit we can grow in Ireland in our climate. So even though you might be seeing things like blueberries coming in from Spain or even the Far East, we can actually grow things like blueberries really well in this country, and lots of other different varieties of fruit as well. I suppose apple trees would be the one thing that everybody knows does grow in this country. Even though we import an awful lot of it, apples will grow really well in your own back garden. And even if you really have a very small back garden, you can even buy what they call coronet. It's not a variety apple, but it's a dwarf apple tree, and they call them coronet apple trees. Now, those can either be planted in the ground or they can be planted into a large tub. So no excuse, even if you've a small garden, you can plant an apple tree. And the other thing too, of course, most people know you need 2 apple trees for pollination, but these coronets actually would have 2 varieties of apple grafted onto the one plant. So you don't need to buy 2 actual trees. The one plant has 2 types of apples growing on it. Very clever.
Okay, interesting. And I'm curious to find out about the variety of fruit we can grow here in Ireland. My favourite fruit, Judy, I'm sure you're dying to know, I'm going to tell you, is pears. And how easy is it to grow pears in this country?
Yeah, as long as you pick the right variety, it's very easy. And you generally will only see the right varieties in the garden centres because we know the varieties that will grow. So we generally only bring those in for sale. Conference, which would be well known, you'd see that often in the shops. Conference would grow very well. There's another one, I hope I pronounced this right now, it's kind of a French name, Comis de Doyen. It's a lovely pear, but it's not really hardy enough. So what they've done is actually they've crossed the stoys to come in with the Conference, which is very reliable, and there's a new variety called Concord, which has got the best of both trees. So, but pears do grow very well, not a problem at all. I suppose the one thing just to keep in mind with pears, apples, plums, other fruit, is they don't like wet ground. So you're better off to either raise your ground up a little bit to make a raised bed, or to put it in a well-draining part of the garden where it also gets sun. It's that goes, unfortunately, for so many plants, they just don't like to have their feet getting wet. You'll find you'll get more diseases, more pests. The tree will just be more vulnerable. So better give it a good start and pick, very important to put it into the right place.
Okay. The word diploid is one I must confess, Judy, I had not come across before, but it is applicable to most fruit trees. Can you explain further?
Yeah, so diploid means that you need 2 trees for pollination. So most fruit trees are diploid. Apples, pears, plums generally need 2 trees. There are exceptions to that, and you can get varieties that are self-pollinating. Or as I was saying before, they've grafted 2 types onto the one tree. But normally you do need to get 2 for pollination. Now, there are types that are called triploids, just to confuse it further. And those triploids, you need 3 trees because, for example, Bramley's seedling, it's a cooking apple, the best known of the cooking apples, but it won't pollinate another tree. So it's useless for pollination. So if you want to have that cooking apple, you'll also need 2 eaters to make sure all 3 trees will get pollinated.
Okay. In terms of the types of fruit that are quite easily grown here in Ireland, I have an apple tree in my front garden. I also have a plum tree. How common are they?
Nice. They're pretty common, and probably the most popular would be Victoria. Love Victoria plums, quite a big plum. There's also Opal, a few other varieties as well. Those 2 would be the best known of them. Plums aren't terribly reliable for fruiting, so Some years you won't get any fruit at all. Other years, like 2025, was a really good year for fruit. It was great weather, and most people had a really good harvest of plums and other fruits that they grew. So, of course, the sunnier our summer is, the better and the riper that our fruit is. And of course, when all these trees, when they flower, the important thing is the pollination, because if they don't get pollinated, you're not going to get fruit. So if we get a really late frost, that can damage our harvest because the flowers get the frost and they die before they can be pollinated. Also, the bees don't come out to pollinate the flowers when the weather is really bad. So if it's really wet, really windy, really cold, you're not going to get the bees out. And so you'll end up with a poorer harvest. So if everything goes in the favour, and last year, as I was saying, was a good year, you end up, we get abundance of fruit.
Okay, so some of the fruits that seem like they're quite commonly and popularly grown in Ireland, you've taken us through, Judy. What other types are grown here but maybe less popular? And then I suppose we're talking about fruit trees, but of course it isn't just trees that fruit grow on in this country.
Popular, but still easy enough to grow. Damsons and cherries would be suitable for this climate. You can grow figs, not quite as easy as the others, but certainly damsons and cherries are worth growing. And morello it's quite an acid cherry for making a jam or for making desserts, but it's got the most gorgeous flowers. So it's a beautiful flowering cherry tree. It's not like the pink big flowers that we see in the ornamental ones, but it's the edible cherry, but beautiful flowers. So well worth growing, not just but for the fruit, but for the flowers. And then other, of course, fruit bushes that you can grow if you don't have a huge amount of space, but you would like to grow fruit. Black currants, white currants, red currants, gooseberry, raspberry, thornless blackberries, and the blueberries, as I was talking about before. Again, all very suitable. Don't need a polytunnel, don't need a glass house. They can all be grown outside. They're all fully hardy. The one there, just to keep in mind, that the blueberry, one of my favourites, because I'm always buying them if I don't have them growing, and they can be expensive enough. Blueberries have to grow, generally they have to grow in a pot because they're very fussy about soil. They need a boggy soil, not a limey soil. An awful lot of us would have gardens on limestone. Not suitable for blueberries, but no problem about putting them into pots. And just buying the right compost for them is the most important thing there.
Okay, brilliant stuff. What about some other berries that we have not mentioned? Probably the biggest amongst them, strawberries.
Yeah, lovely. Strawberries. Now, all the other fruits that I was talking about are all generally available for sale at the moment. Strawberries won't be available for another probably month or thereabouts. But strawberries would be a really popular one for people to grow. Again, they're very hardy. You don't need any special soil. You don't need any polytunnel or anything. That can be grown outside. Now, of course, you have to keep in mind that when we like these fruits, like the strawberries and the blueberries and the currants, the birds also like them. So you have to give usually maybe some protection like netting to protect them from the birds when they become ripe, because you can go out to pick them and you find out the birds got there before you. So just keep that in mind. And the strawberries, because they're lower down, the slugs tend to like them. So you need to do generally some kind of protection against the slugs, unless, of course, you grow them higher up and possibly grow them in a hanging basket, and that would solve your slug problem, but not your bird problem.
Okay, what about some of the more citrusy fruits?
So oranges and lemons, believe it or not, a lot of people grow them. And even when I was growing up, we had an orange tree in the conservatory. It was called a kumquat. My mother used to make marmalade out of it. So small little oranges, not like the sweet oranges that we would be used to, but they look so nice growing on a tree. So either in a glass house or in a conservatory, somewhere with plenty of light where the sun comes into and they get plenty of sun for ripening. You need special compost, and you need some special citrus food as well to feed them with. You wouldn't use tomato food, but absolutely popular and to grow. And as I say, they make a really nice houseplant.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Before we get to the jobs for the week, any final tips for growing fruit?
So just to reiterate what I was saying, that to put your fruit in a sheltered, sunny area of the garden, which helps for pollination and for ripening. And for feeding them, use a sulfate of potash, which is high in potassium. Again, that helps with fruiting and you get more fruit and better fruit if you use some sulfate of potash. And fruit trees, of course, should be pruned in the wintertime, so round about now.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Just to remind you, it is 086 1800 964 if you have a gardening question for Judy. Before we get to that, though, a few jobs drawn up for our gardeners around the county.
Yes, so if you're intending on growing vegetables this year and you have some raised beds, a good idea to cover them with black plastic from now on. And the black plastic does two things. One, it keeps the weeds at bay, because as the temperatures go up, the weed seeds will start, of course, and the weeds never seem to stop growing. So that really helps to clean your bed. And also the black plastic warms the soil up, so you can plant into it a little bit earlier than if you leave the bed exposed. If you have a glass house, if you're lucky enough to have a glass house, remember to give it a nice clean now, because lots of little bugs might have gone in there over the winter. And when you're starting your seeds and seedlings, you don't want them eating for free. So good idea now to clean up the glass house. And just a reminder for pruning shrubs, if they got a little bit straggly over the winter, if the weather's good enough, to try and get out in the garden and prune them. Unless, of course, the shrubs that flower before June should not be pruned now, or you're going to lose the flowers. Wait till after June to prune those.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Let's get to the questions from our listeners. And the first one for you, Judy, is a listener asking, can you get a lawn feed without a weed killer in it?
There is lawn feeds without weed killer. One of them, Mobacter, or generic brands of Mobacter, they work on a bacteria that dissolves the moss if your lawn has moss, and feeds the lawn at the same time. Or if you don't have moss, you can just get a plain lawn feed. And you don't need to put down a weed killer. A lot of them do have weed killers, but it'll be clear on the pack whether it does or not.
Okay, we have another listener here, Michael, asking, what grows well in the shade?
There's a good few different types of plants for shade, shrubs and perennials, and of course winter flower or spring flowering bulbs as well. Some of the perennials would be hostas, are lovely for shade, though the slugs like them as well, so just to keep an eye on that. There's another one called bleeding heart, or dicentra, one of my favourite plants for shade, most gorgeous little flowers. Won't be available now till February or March. And it dies all the way back in the winter, but really, really nice flower. And I have it in a very shady area of my own garden, and it does really well. For shrubs, something like sweet box, I think we talked about it last week. It's got the most beautiful scented flower, grows very well in shade, and it doesn't get into a really big plant, so it's quite a nice compact plant, and can also be used for hedging. There's also Japanese anemones, lovely pink flower. They do well in shade. And ferns. Ferns are all in fashion now at the moment. You know, the ferns you see in the woods, they love a damp, shady spot. There is actually plenty of plants, and more than happy to help if he drops in to see me.
Okay, brilliant stuff. And earlier on, Judy, you were talking about different types of soil. The more lime-scaly soil we have here in Ireland, and the boggy type needed by blueberries. Someone wondering what they should plant in clay soil.
Clay soil, you can, unless it's really heavy, clay soil is actually really good generally, because clay soil tends to hold on to nutrients really well, whereas sandy soils tend to lose the nutrients because it's so free draining. So clay soil generally better to have nutrient wise, and the majority of plants will grow in clay soil unless it's really wet. And if it is really wet, you could try to just add a little bit grit to it, but the majority of plants will grow in clay soil.
We were speaking about growing fruit earlier on, and apples featuring very prominently there. A listener wondering, when do you sow apple trees?
From usually around about now, actually. So January, February, March would traditionally be. You can, in this country, you can nearly sow apple trees at any time of the year, because we don't get those really dry summers, which is the problem with when you plant a tree in the first year, and there's the risk of it drying out if you get, a good few weeks without any rain. But generally doesn't happen here. So you can nearly put them in at any time, but now would be kind of the traditional time.
Okay.
Should
We'll move from
plenty available.
sowing to planting. We have a question asking what a listener should plant now for the coming season.
Well, I wonder if they mean with flowers wise. And things that people would be planting now would be, for example, the hellebores, the Lenten rose, which is a beautiful a little perennial. It'll flower right through now till the end of April. So they're available in the shops at the moment. Another thing would be camellias. Camellias will be beginning to flower in February. So they're very much available. The garden centres tend to have available what's about to come into flower or in flower at the moment. And that's what people tend to buy. That's when people tend to ask for them. So that's when they're usually stocked. So camellias would be a really popular, because the flower is just absolutely beautiful. Looks like a rose. Again, it's same like a blueberry. It's a boggy, acidic plant, so it doesn't like limestone. So again, you have to keep it in a pot. But there also, for if you want a little bit of colour around the house, there's pansies, there's bellis, and some heathers available. Heathers would be another thing that would be very popular at the moment.
Okay, and we're almost out of time, but a final question courtesy of Maggie. Good morning to you, Maggie, who's asking, could I move my white Buddleia bus in February to a new area?
Yes, should be no problem about moving a Buddleia in February. It'll be dormant, and the best time to move shrubs is when they're dormant. And Buddleias grow so easily, it's almost impossible to kill them. So, yeah, it should be no problem. From even now, you could probably move it because the ground's not frozen. So, yeah, February is a perfect time.
Okay, I did say Maggie's question was the last one, but I'm trying to counteract Blue Monday by making as many people feel as good as possible. So our final question for a listener who's gotten in touch saying, can I ask about planting palm trees? I planted 2 last year late and they're still going, but will they grow better this year in the soil of North Tip where they are?
Hello, North Tipperary.
Palm trees in North Tip, there you go.
Yeah. And I'm just when I see people there's lots of different trees that people call palm trees. So I'm always a little thrown out when that people talk about palm trees. You see, I wonder, is the New Zealand cabbage palm, which is a cordyline, and it grows up on a big stem, and all the leaves are at the top. You might have seen it, Alan. You might know. So did you say it's not growing very well?
She said they're still going. So it sounds like they're going fine. But will they grow better in that particular location?
Well, if she was in Clare, they might do better, actually.
Absolutely, they definitely do better if they were in Clare.
And the reason I say that, well, by the coast, they do very well because they're not completely fully hardy. They're generally fine in our climate, and even actually if they really get hit hard by the frost, they might die back, but usually they come again from the base.
Okay.
If it's the tree I'm thinking of that she's talking about, if she wants to send in a photo, maybe next time it might help, but they should do fine. Not to worry. Yeah,
do send us a photo and maybe a bit more information, and we can provide Judy with a bit more detail. But for the moment, Judy, thank you for addressing all the information that was presented before you and all of the other questions. And thanks very much for joining us as ever for In the Garden.
Bye.
Thank you very much. That's Judy Beck, the General Manager of the Clonroad Garden Centre, with us for this week's edition of In the Garden.